There's something about the smell of old cardboard that makes me feel like I'm stepping backward through time, and not always in a good way. Dust, duct tape, faded labels. It's a scent tied to leaving and starting over, and today it clung to my clothes like a warning. I hadn't seen Jaime in over a year. Not since my dad's 50th birthday barbecue when he showed up late, still in paint-splattered jeans, with that lopsided grin that somehow always made my chest tighten. Back then, I chalked it up to admiration. He was older, confident, could fix anything with his hands. A family friend who lived in his own rhythm. But that didn't explain why I'd memorized the curve of his laugh or the way his eyes crinkled when he smirked. And it definitely didn't explain why my stomach twisted when Dad said he needed help moving Jaime into his new place this weekend. Just a couple boxes and furniture, Dad had said casually. He doesn't have much. You two can handle it. I said yes without thinking. Now, as I stood in Jaime's half-packed garage, watching sunlight catch in the sweat slicking the back of his neck, I regretted not asking more questions. Like, was Jaime still single? Still oblivious? Still frustratingly beautiful? Hey Milo, he called out, waving me over with a grin. You remember how to lift without breaking your back? I rolled my eyes, grabbing the other side of the dresser he'd tilted toward me. Maybe I'll throw mine out just to make you feel young. He laughed, warm and familiar. Smartass. That was our rhythm. Snarky easy like no time had passed. But under the jokes I felt it, the way my skin prickled when his hand brushed mine, the way I looked too long when he wasn't watching. The way I remembered vividly the last time he hugged me goodbye, how it lingered just a second too long and haunted me afterward in the quiet moments I never admitted to anyone. Jaime had always felt like a chapter from a different book. Older by nearly 10 years, an artist/contractor who used his hands more than his words. But he never made me feel small. Never talked down to me. If anything, he treated me like someone worth hearing. And now, here I was, older, more certain of myself, and still hopelessly tongue-tied around him. The place he was moving into sat at the edge of town, tucked behind a line of oak trees that filtered the late summer sun into golden streaks. The kind of place that felt quiet in a good way. It was just us for the weekend. My dad had dropped me off and driven off to run errands, leaving Jaime and me alone with mismatched furniture, too many stairs, and years of tension no one had named yet. I wasn't sure what I expected. But when Jaime's hand found my waist to steady the dresser between us, I froze. Because suddenly, it felt like something was about to shift. Jaime had been around for as long as I could remember, always hovering at the edges of family events, house projects, and holidays where his presence felt like an extra light bulb in the room. He and my dad met on a construction job back in the early 2000s and never really lost touch. When I was a teenager, he was the guy who taught me how to hold a drill properly, helped me patch the hole in my bedroom wall after I got too ambitious with a floating shelf, and once fixed my bike chain without saying a word when he saw me sulking on the curb. Back then he was just Jaime, cool, older, slightly mysterious. The kind of adult who didn't condescend or hover, just appeared when needed, gave you his full attention and left without making a big deal out of it. I think it shifted the summer I turned 19. We spent a weekend repainting my dad's deck, and somewhere between sanding wood and passing paint cans, I realized I was watching his hands too much. Not in the I want to learn from him way, but in the I want to know what those hands would feel like against my back kind of way. It scared the hell out of me. So I buried it. Let the space grow. Until today. So, what's your apartment aesthetic now? I asked as we slid the dresser against the living room wall. Still going for eccentric bachelor with a mysterious past? Or have you evolved to guy who definitely owns a record player? Jaime chuckled, brushing his hair off his forehead with the back of his wrist. You say that like I don't own a record player. I grinned. Let me guess, all 70s vinyls and exactly one Radiohead album, so you seem interesting. You wound me. He placed a hand over his heart, mock offended. It's 2 Radiohead albums. We kept falling into that rhythm, quick jabs, sideways glances, laughter that filled the space more easily than silence. But every so often there'd be a beat. A pause too long. His eyes would meet mine and linger, like he was waiting for me to say something I didn't know how to say yet. Then came the complication. Shit, Jaime muttered around 6 p.m., peering out the front door. Rain. Hard, fast, unrelenting. You still have stuff in the truck, right? Yeah. Just a few boxes, but they can't get wet. He glanced at me. You good to help? Yeah, just let me grab. Power flickered. And went out. We both stood still for a second, listening to the quiet hum of nothing. Breaker? I asked. Jaime ran a hand through his dampening hair. Nope. This place is on a grid that fries every time there's a storm. The landlord said it might happen. So, No lights. No Wi-Fi. And you haven't unpacked your flashlight. Nope. And we're both stuck here. Looks like it. He raised an eyebrow, amused. You scared of the dark, Milo? Terrified, I deadpanned. But I'm more scared of you trying to cook without seeing. Wow, he laughed. Still a mouth on you. We spent the next half hour darting between the truck and the house, soaked to the skin, dropping boxes in the hall like war survivors. At some point, Jaime peeled off his hoodie, and I pretended I wasn't tracking the lines of his shoulders under the drenched white t-shirt that clung to him. By the time we were done, the storm was fully committed. Windows rattled. The living room was lit only by the occasional flash of lightning and the faint glow from Jaime's phone flashlight. I've got one camping lantern packed somewhere, he said, crouching to dig through a box. If I can find it. I didn't move. Just sat on the arm of the old couch and watched him. The curve of his back. The way his brows pinched in concentration. He looked tired but calm. Comfortable in a way that made my chest ache a little. He glanced up suddenly, catching me. I looked away too fast. Hey, he said softly, still crouched. You okay? Yeah. Just thinking. A small smile tugged at his lips. About what? I shrugged, trying to swallow the pulse rising in my throat. Nothing. Just, this place. Feels different. Yeah, he said, and something passed through his eyes, soft and unreadable. It does. The rain didn't stop. By nightfall, it had grown colder, the kind of damp chill that crawled beneath your clothes and settled in your bones. Jaime's new place was charming, sure, but old. The kind of old that meant drafty windows and radiators that hadn't quite gotten the memo they were supposed to be heating the place. And since the power was still out, that meant no hot showers, no microwave dinner, and no space heaters. I've got a sleeping bag in the truck, I said, teeth chattering slightly as I peeled off my wet socks and tossed them near the front door. I'll just crash on the floor. Jaime emerged from the hallway, towel in hand, drying his hair. No way you're sleeping on the floor. It's freezing in here. I've slept in worse conditions. Once did a weekend camping trip in early spring. Woke up to frost on my eyebrows. He gave me a look. You also sprained your ankle on that trip and cried in the backseat on the way home. That's slander, I said, pointing at him. You weren't even there. My point stands, he replied, tossing the towel over a chair. I'm not letting you sleep on the floor. Bed's big enough. Unless that freaks you out. Freak me out? No, it thrilled me and terrified me in equal parts. Jaime, within arm's reach. Jaime, close enough to hear me breathe. Jaime, barefoot, loose-limbed, and completely unaware of the storm he was stirring in my chest. I shrugged like it didn't matter. Yeah, okay. Just don't kick me in your sleep. The bedroom was barely unpacked. A mattress on the floor, sheets half wrinkled and slightly crooked. A single lamp by the window we couldn't use because, well, still no power. The rain drummed steadily on the roof, a low hum that filled every silence between us. Jaime disappeared into the bathroom to change. I sat on the edge of the bed, fiddling with the hem of my shirt, suddenly too aware of how my heart thudded in my chest. I stared at the water streaking the window pane, trying to calm my breathing. You're just tired. You're cold. That's all this is. He came back in wearing flannel pajama pants and a dark thermal shirt, his hair still damp and curling slightly at the ends. He rubbed at the back of his neck awkwardly. I usually sleep in less, he admitted, like he was confessing a crime. But I figured I'd spare you the trauma. I gave a half laugh, not trusting myself to say much more. We slipped under the blankets, both facing the ceiling like statues. There was at least a foot of space between us, but I could feel him, his warmth, the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing. It was grounding and maddening at once. I turned slightly, just enough to glance at him. He looked relaxed. Or at least like he was trying to be. Can't sleep? He asked after a minute, voice quiet in the dark. Too cold, I murmured. Or too wired. Can't tell which. Without a word he shifted closer. Not all the way. Just enough that his shoulder brushed mine under the blankets. A subtle, deliberate contact that made my entire body go still. There, he said, voice low. Better? Yeah, I breathed, hating how small my voice sounded. I wanted to ask him if he noticed how I tensed at his touch. If he felt the same fluttering weight in his chest that I did. If he ever wondered what would happen if he leaned in just a little more. But I didn't. Because what if the answer was no? I'm glad you came today, Jaime said after a while. I wasn't sure you would. Why wouldn't I? He shrugged. Felt like maybe you'd been pulling away. Didn't want to make you do something you didn't want. I hesitated. I wasn't avoiding you. Not really. Just had stuff on my mind. Like. I bit the inside of my cheek. Just Life. Future stuff. Dumb stuff. He was quiet then. You've never struck me as dumb. A beat passed. Then I said it before I could overthink it. Sometimes I don't know how to be around you. He shifted beside me. Why? My throat tightened. Because sometimes I feel like I want something I shouldn't. It hung in the air between us, sharp and delicate, like a thread pulled too tight. I turned onto my side, not looking at him, not trusting myself to see his face. My heart was hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. And then I felt it. His fingers, slow and hesitant, brushing against my wrist beneath the blanket. Not grabbing. Just touching. Like he was testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. His voice, softer than I'd ever heard it. You're not the only one who's felt that way. I turned, finally, hard in my throat. Jaime was closer now, eyes unreadable in the dim light filtering through the window. I didn't know if it was just me, he said. I didn't want to screw it up. Scare you off. You didn't, I said. You haven't. He reached up, hand cupping the side of my neck like he was still giving me a chance to back away. I didn't move. We stayed like that, on the edge of something we couldn't take back. His thumb grazed my jaw. And I swear, in that moment, I could have stopped time just to stay inside the quiet between us. His hand was still on my jaw, warm, grounding, when I finally let myself meet his gaze. In the dim light from the storm-muted street lamp outside the window, his face was unreadable but open, like he'd stripped away every mask he usually wore without realizing it. You have no idea, I whispered, how long I've wanted this. Jaime's thumb stilled against my cheek, but he didn't pull away. Then tell me. I swallowed. My chest felt tight, my heart thudding with the kind of force that made it hard to think clearly. I didn't know what it was at first, I admitted. Not really. Whenever you were around, it felt easier to breathe. Like I didn't have to try so hard. And then that summer we did the deck. I huffed a soft laugh. I thought I was just admiring your work ethic. His mouth quirked barely. I told myself it wasn't anything. I mean, you're you. Older. Dad's friend. Straight. I thought. Jaime's fingers slid slightly, curling under my jaw now, more deliberate. I'm not, he said quietly. Not straight. Not really. I just never figured out how to say that out loud. I blinked. Not even to my dad? He shook his head. Especially not to your dad. I let out a breath, relief and disbelief crashing together in my chest. God. Jaime. His voice was soft. Did you think I didn't notice how you looked at me? I hoped you didn't. I always did. There was a beat of silence, thick and stretching, filled only with the rain and the quiet sounds of our breathing. I didn't want to scare you, he said. You were young. And figuring things out. I didn't want to get in your head. I was already there. Jaime gave a tight, slightly broken laugh. I know. His eyes dropped to my mouth for just a second. One small second that knocked the air out of my lungs. You have no idea how many times I thought about this, he said. Then why didn't you? Because you matter. Because you're not just some random person I could mess around with and forget. Because if I crossed that line and you weren't ready, or didn't want it the same way I did, his voice faltered. I couldn't come back from that. I'm ready, I said, barely more than a breath. I've been ready for a long time. Jaime's hand slid to the back of my neck, his palm warm against my skin. I didn't realize I was shaking until I felt the steady weight of his thumb tracing soft circles just beneath my ear. We were so close now. His forehead almost touched mine. I could feel the ghost of his breath against my lips. You sure? He asked. And God, I loved him for asking. For giving me that final out. But I didn't need it. I leaned in first. The kiss was nothing like I imagined. It wasn't hungry or rushed or cinematic. It was careful. Hesitant. Like we both needed to feel the full truth of it before letting the moment spin out of control. His lips were soft and familiar, and when he exhaled, right against my mouth, I felt like I was letting go of a weight I hadn't known I'd been carrying for years. I pulled back just far enough to breathe him in. His forehead rested against mine, eyes closed, one hand still at the nape of my neck. I didn't think you'd want me, I said. Not really. Not like this. Jaime's eyes opened, and the way he looked at me, like I was something fragile and treasured and understood all at once, made my throat ache. I didn't think I was allowed to. Allowed? I figured if I let myself want you, I'd ruin everything. He shifted slightly, lying back beside me, pulling me with him. My head rested against his chest now, and I could feel his heartbeat, fast and steady. I let myself relax into him. Let my fingers splay against his ribs beneath the hem of his shirt. I've had a dozen conversations in my head, I said, trying to figure out how to tell you. Jaime chuckled softly. Me too. They all ended with you laughing in my face. I wouldn't have. I know that now. His hand drifted through my hair, slow and rhythmic, grounding me in this strange, wonderful reality I hadn't dared imagine outside of dreams. I was scared, I admitted, of screwing it up, of losing you, of finding out I'd made it all up in my head. You didn't, he said. Not a bit of it. I tilted my head up. He looked down at me and something in his expression softened, like all the tension in his shoulders had melted away now that everything was out in the open. I meant what I said, he murmured. I'm glad you came today. Not just for the help, but for this. For us. Even if I tracked mud through your kitchen? Even then. We lay there in silence for a while, our breathing sinking, our hands tangled somewhere beneath the blanket. Do you think my dad's going to murder me? I asked eventually, a smile pulling at my lips. Jaime let out a genuine laugh, the sound vibrating through his chest. I think he's going to be shocked. But not mad. You sure? Well, he always said he trusted me. Guess we're gonna put that to the test. I groaned and buried my face in his chest. This is going to be so awkward. Yeah, he said, amused. But worth it. I looked up again and his face was relaxed, softer than I'd ever seen it. Are we going to talk about what this is? I asked. Jaime nodded slowly. We should. But maybe not tonight. Not while we're still wet, half-frozen, and high on endorphins. Tomorrow then? Yeah, he said. Tomorrow. He leaned down again, pressing a kiss to my forehead this time, gentle and lingering. I just want you to know, he added, that this isn't casual for me. It never has been. I know. And I don't want to rush anything. You get to set the pace. I don't want to rush either, I said. But I do want something. With you. Jaime's arm tightened around me just slightly. Good, he said. Because I've wanted something with you for a long time. I closed my eyes and let myself sink into the warmth of him. Into the soft hush of the storm beyond the walls. Into the quiet comfort of a connection finally named. For the first time in years, I wasn't second-guessing every thought in my head. I wasn't trying to hide the way I looked at him or the way my hand found his without needing permission. I wasn't afraid. And neither was he. Because somehow, against the odds and the years and the fear, we had found us. And we weren't going to let it go. I woke up to the faintest glow of morning light pressing through the rain-streaked windows, and for a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then I shifted and felt the warmth of Jaime's arm draped over my waist, his chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm against my back. And just like that, everything rushed back. The storm. The kiss. The way his hand had cradled my jaw like I was something worth holding carefully. I stayed still for a long time, not wanting to wake him, but more than that, not wanting the moment to end. His hand twitched once against my stomach in his sleep, then stilled again. I could feel his breath in the space between my shoulder blades, calm and real and here. Eventually he stirred, his voice gravelly and half asleep behind me. You awake? Barely, I murmured. He pressed a soft kiss to the back of my neck, which sent a shiver racing down my spine. Well, he said, voice warm with sleep and something quieter, good morning then. I rolled to face him and he didn't hesitate, just pulled me closer, forehead resting against mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. We stared at each other for a beat, that soft haze of early morning making everything feel heavier and lighter at once. Still feel real? I asked, keeping my voice quiet like talking too loud might scare it away. Jaime's mouth twitched into a sleepy smile. A little sore from sleeping on this crappy couch, but yeah, real. I smiled too, heart doing something unruly in my chest. Good. We stayed like that, tangled up, until the sun broke through the clouds a little more, casting slanted gold light across the floor. Jaime finally sat up, rubbing the back of his neck and looked down at me. So, he said, we should probably talk about next. I propped myself up on an elbow. Right. Next. You heading back to school next week? Yeah. Monday. I watched his expression carefully, afraid to see doubt or second thoughts. But all I found was consideration, like he was turning it over gently in his mind. I could come visit, he said. On a weekend. If you want. Yeah. My voice cracked slightly, but I didn't care. I'd really like that. Good. Because I'm not exactly good at casual. And this thing between us doesn't feel like something I want to treat casually anyway. I swallowed hard, heart thudding. It's not. Not for me either. There was a moment of quiet between us again, but this one felt easy. Not full of nerves or tension, just the quiet that settles when two people know they're on the same page. Also, Jaime said with a smirk, you snore. I do not. You do. Softly. Like a little truck revving in its sleep. I laughed and tossed a throw pillow at his face. You're just making that up so I feel self-conscious next time we sleep in the same bed. His grin widened. Are you saying there's going to be a next time? You really want to start with the smugness already? I teased even as I leaned into him again. He caught me, arms circling my waist with that same steady ease he always had when he was building something, like he knew the shape of it before it even existed. I'm just saying, he murmured, his breath brushing my cheek, we've got a whole lot of mornings ahead of us. Might as well learn the facts now. I hate how good that sounds, I whispered. Jaime leaned in and kissed me again, slower this time, sure. The kind of kiss that tasted like future. And in that sunlit, rain-washed living room with cardboard boxes still stacked around us and nowhere to be but here, it didn't matter how complicated it would get. Because whatever came next, we were going into it together. And that was more than enough. The storm had passed by the next afternoon. The sky above the hills was a soft, washed-out blue, the kind that only appears after the clouds have wrung themselves dry. The grass outside the house glistened with leftover rain, and the air smelled like damp earth and cedar. We'd spent the morning packing up the last few boxes in comfortable silence. Just music playing low from Jaime's phone and the occasional brush of his hand against mine as we moved through the space together. The house felt different now. Less like an ending, more like a threshold. Jaime stood at the open trunk of the truck, securing a set of old lamps with bungee cords. I was pretending to double-check the list, but really I was just watching him. The way his shoulders moved beneath his worn t-shirt, the way he hummed under his breath without realizing it. He looked happy. You good? He asked without looking over, like he could feel me watching. Yeah, I said. Just taking it in. He closed the trunk and came to stand next to me, our arms brushing. We did good. I nodded. Not bad for a weekend move and a surprise emotional breakdown. He laughed, low and soft. Yeah. Can't believe I made it through the weekend without you breaking something. I almost broke you, I reminded him, grinning. His eyes sparkled. Worth it. There was a long pause. Not uncomfortable, just loaded. I turned slightly to face him. So what happens when we're not in a half-packed house with no electricity and a storm outside? You mean in the real world? Jaime asked. Yeah. He thought about it for a second, then reached into his back pocket and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. I opened it. It was a bus schedule. Highlighted. You looked up the route to my campus? He shrugged, sheepish. Wanted to make sure I had no excuses. A warmth bloomed in my chest, the kind that made me want to laugh and cry and kiss him all at once. I don't expect you to figure it all out today, I said quietly. Jaime looked at me then, really looked. I know. But I want to try. He reached for my hand and I gave it to him without hesitation. His fingers curled around mine, firm and familiar. It doesn't feel like something I want to overthink. I've done enough waiting around for the right time. I squeezed his hand. Yeah, me too. He leaned his forehead against mine for a moment, breathing in slow. Then he kissed me again, gentle and sure, right there next to the open truck. The kind of kiss that wasn't about hiding or hesitating, it was about showing up. When we pulled apart, I noticed something tucked between the boxes in the passenger seat. A small, beat-up ceramic mug. One of the ones we'd packed from the kitchen yesterday. You took the owl mug? I asked. Jaime raised an eyebrow. It's your favorite. It's hideous. It's yours, he said like that explained everything. I shook my head, smiling as he walked around to the driver's side. Before he climbed in, he looked over the roof at me. You gonna visit me before classes start? I asked. If I don't, I have a feeling you'll show up and guilt me into it. Damn right. He grinned, and for the first time I saw it, the quiet confidence in his posture, the ease in his smile. Like a weight had been lifted. I'll call you when I get in, he said. I'll be waiting. Jaime climbed into the truck, the engine roaring to life. He didn't drive off immediately, just sat there for a second, staring ahead, then looked over at me and mouthed, "See you soon." I stood on the porch until the taillights disappeared down the drive. And even then I didn't feel sad. Not because I wouldn't miss him, but because for the first time I didn't have to wonder where we stood. There was something building between us now, something with roots and motion and intention. It wasn't just about a weekend in a storm anymore. It was about the road ahead. And for once I couldn't wait to take it.